And we are live. Good morning and welcome to the Auto Hub show. I'm going to start this morning with a video that I shot at a SodaCon in Baltimore. And since the topic is about insights, I thought it was interesting to start with a data insight from two companies. Here we go.
We're actually representing two companies here. This is Juniper Networks, the AI native network, and GuidePoint Security, your trusted advisor. So maybe you can tell me a little bit more about both, since clearly you represent both.
Yeah, so I'm Bryce Layton. I'm with Juniper Networks, and my partner, Rick Tamburino, is here with me from GuidePoint.
There you got a little bit of an accent.
Yeah.
An accent?
Yeah. So what our product does, first of all, some of our customers, Tesla is our biggest.
Wow.
So our product runs all their manufacturing facilities, but also is in their retail locations. And one of the things that's interesting about the solution we provide, Juniper's a networking company, mostly known for the giant routers that run every carrier runs on the internet.
Right.
We also have a commercial division. In our commercial division, we have a product called Mist. And Mist basically takes the Wi-Fi that we have and switches and mystifies it. So what does that mean? We're able to do retail analytics at the stores. So I can tell you, for example, store number 19, I don't even see anybody walking around here.
Right.
Maybe either you want to build a big sign or maybe you want to shut it down.
Right.
Store number 6, I see a ton of traffic here. Their sales aren't great, but maybe you should train the salespeople or run a promo or top level them.
Right.
Also, we can show you, let's say you started a campaign that was on the web.
Yeah.
And somebody took their phone. It's like, okay, yeah, I'll sign up. I want to get updates on the new Volkswagen GTI.
Right.
I want to know when it comes out, blah, blah, blah. If you did it on your phone, now we've got your MAC address of your phone or your device ID. Now when you come into a dealership, even if you're not connected to the Wi-Fi, I know it's Ian, because that device ID matches his name. Now, if Ian has never gone online first time at the dealership, I'm just seeing his device ID. I could just tell you this device is coming back and back. I don't know it's Ian yet. But at the dealers, hey, don't you want to use our free Wi-Fi? And we also make it so it kind of like pushes you to it. Here's a little thing, hey, for faster and better service, use our Wi-Fi, right? So once you do that, now I know it's Ian. The other way our dealerships use it is during the test drive phase. So these days, people will go for a 3-mile test drive and they want to come back and they want to know what the cars work, right? They don't want to wait 2 hours. Our mechanic, blah, blah, blah. So this system works with the applications that do that. You have a iPad or some type of device. You're taking a picture of the VIN number. You're looking at the motor. You're looking at the wear on the tires, the brakes, and all that stuff. And they take that all into account as well as Kelly Blue Book, and then boom, they've got your valuation.
Tony when I'm the general manager over at Fred Bean's Key and Langhorne. Just wanted to take a minute to talk about Larry Feldman, Career Trainers USA. Larry and I have been working together for about the last 12 years now. And anything I've ever needed as far as recruiting, training, Larry's been right there. Larry's got me salespeople, he's got me managers, he's got me technicians even through the toughest times in the industry. And he is just the kind of guy who's going to tell you exactly what's on his mind. He's going to tell you exactly what he thinks. But Larry also has the expertise to back it up. When he was in the dealership world, he was a top performer. And that's really important to my staff, especially as it pertains to training. A lot of people can come in and teach out a textbook, but Larry has real world experience dealing with customers, dealing with situations in dealerships that we go through on a daily basis and try to train on. But Larry's been through it, so he can really empathize with the people and tell you what's worked for him and maybe what way not to go. Larry is just always at a 10. I mean, his energy level is always up there. And I think people, they just love that and they feed off of it. He's not faking it. He is genuinely excited to come in and help you. He's excited to come in and help grow your business. And he's one of those people who just really enjoys seeing dealers succeed and have a lot of fun at the same time.
Life is about connection. Having a support system to lean on. And roads to endless possibility. At every turn, guiding the way, we are building the connections that move you.
So what would your dealership feel like if your entire sales staff was literally on fire, your sales and service staff? They were nonstop all over social media, completely dominating your marketplace. They could do it in 30 days or less and then continue their education to do it for an entire 6 months or a year. You literally would completely take over the entire marketplace and no one would be able to compete with you. And that's what we can do for you. So when you're walking around your community, whether you're at local restaurants or you're going to the gym, you don't want to be bothered? Fine, you won't be bothered. But a lot of people will walk up to you and say, oh my God, I love your social media. Your staff is amazing. We love what you're doing in the community. We want to come buy a car from you. We want to get an oil change at your dealership. Your community is absolutely going to love you. And it doesn't matter what platform you're on. You could be on TikTok, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, all social media platforms. You will literally be all over the place. And not only will you have ads running, but your own staff is going to be promoting your brand and promoting themselves within the dealership and within the business. So it's like running an ad times 100-fold because your entire staff is participating in the process. I've traveled all over North America. I've trained Toyota. I've trained Nissan. I've been to driving sales. I've been to Women in Auto. I get hired as a speaker for conferences at universities all over the country. And I can help change the trajectory of your dealership right now.
Good morning and welcome. So there's a couple books that I recommended for the show today, and I have a hard copy of one of them, which you can get your own hard copy on if you go to cdkglobal.com/insights. The other one I have in a PDF version, Service Shopper 3.0. And this morning I had the pleasure of having both of the, I guess, authors or investigators or researchers on to talk a little bit about insights in our Global Insight show. Before I do that, obviously, I got to talk about our disclaimer. The views and opinions of any of the guests on the show are the opinions of them and them alone. They're not the opinion of myself or of the Auto Hub show, even though, to be purely transparent, CDK is a sponsor of the show, so we endorse it any way we can. If you have a question about the disclaimer, you can check it out on our website, and let's get into it. So today we're talking about the Global Automotive Insights. So that's a big title, pretty heavy. So obviously we're in the Auto Hub show, we're big on data and analytics, and we're big on giving dealers the ability to have those insights to improve their business, but also we want to keep it informative so that dealers can understand it, but not only that, apply it to their business. So let's go ahead and start. We're going to start with introducing our guest today. And let me just move them over there. 1 second here. Stop share. There we go. And we're going over this way. Here we go. All right. So we have a couple different guests today. So obviously we have Troy, who's one of our regulars. We have Larry, who's one of our sponsors, and we got Kim. And is it Khan? K-A-H? Peter. Okay, sorry, your Zoom thing is different. So Peter. So who wants to start? Do we want to start with Kim?
Sure, I'll start.
So tell us more about you.
Okay, I'll tell you a little bit about me. My name is Kim Saylor. I am Senior Director of Product Marketing for Fixed Operations at CDK, and I've been in the business for longer than I'll share, so we'll just say a long time. Pretty much always focused in the fixed ops space. So I've done training, I've done implementation, I've done presentations for the CDK sales team. I've been in product marketing for quite some time now. So all of it, like I said, really focused on fixed ops. So I've probably been to more dealerships than I can count. Let's put it that way. So that's my story.
Fantastic. And if you could answer a quick question for me. Obviously, I've had a chance to review both the hard copy book here, which I'd recommend, and of course the digital format, which I'd also recommend. What are the top 3 high-level takeaways, in your opinion, from the research you've done? And obviously, you visit a lot of dealerships, so you know more than just from the data. What are your top 3 insights from it? What do you think?
Well, so I mentioned that I was fixed ops, so probably everything I talk about today will be fixed ops.
No problem. Yeah.
So, because that is really where my love, my passion. So I would say for me, the three high-level takeaways comes from our service shopper study that we've done, and really it's from the customers that choose to take their car to a dealership for service. So what were the top 3 reasons that a consumer chooses a dealership? And one of those was the existing relationship that they have with the dealer. So 52% of the respondents said that it started in sales. So when they actually, were there buying their car, they felt good about the transaction. They felt they got a fair price. And of course, that makes it easier for them to, choose that dealership for service. And then of course, as we know, if they're happy with service, they come back to sales. So, it's, vital, that connection between sales and service. I know they're 2 separate departments, but they really have to rely on each other for a lot of that customer experience. The second was second reason why consumers chose a dealership was for the service staff knowledge. So a dealer's factory trained technicians, that's the top reason that a service shopper chooses to go to a dealership. And 47% of respondents said that they visited the dealership because of that knowledge. They know my car better than anyone else. That's why I'm taking it there for service. And then the third reason, specialized parts. So being able to get the OEM part that was needed, along with a good reputation for actually fixing it right. So again, it kind of links to that knowledge, but if they can get the right part, they can fix it right. They have a good reputation. So it's not always about being like the lowest cost or the cheapest, or even the most convenient. So we know, sometimes they're not on every corner, right? But so there's other valuable features that bring that customer to the dealership. So that was the thing that I took away.
No problem. Thanks for that. Peter, tell us more about you, what you do, and maybe your top 3 takeaways.
Yeah, you bet. So first of all, I apologize for the weird Zoom name there. I guess we need to fix that.
No worries.
Thanks. So interestingly enough, I started out at IBM many years ago, which gave me a little bit of grounding in both technology and business management. But forget that. I then went in 2000, joined a small little company called Cobalt, which is the C in CDK. Those folks that are listening know what Cobalt was. We provided websites and digital advertising to dealerships across North America. I was a product manager there, and mostly in the area of doing building out research-based tools for the manufacturers. One of them, which was a way of evaluating how well dealers were providing an experience to customers, primarily online, via website, via advertising, via search, via reputation, etc. And that led to really the career I have now, which is market research. So I provide for CDK all the research that goes into the thought leadership book that you held up, that Global Insights, some product-based stuff, some voice of the customer. So that's what I do. My top 3 takeaways, I'm going to take a little more of a high-level view, and then we can talk about fixed operations. But interestingly enough, again, going back to those 25 years in auto, when we first started out, the internet was, a lot of dealers didn't believe that the internet was real. And a lot of what Cobalt spent time is convincing folks that the internet is real. You should put your advertising online. But dealers were reticent about doing that. Fast forward to today, and we've gone from what I would say an industry that was a little bit tech adverse to embracing tech in a huge way. Going from, again, really the idea of how do I improve lead productivity? How do I better use the folks in the dealership? How do I bring technology into the service bay? So I think that's a big insight, a big change in the industry that I've seen over those 25 years. Number 2 is consolidation. It's interesting because while the number of rooftops really hasn't changed over those many years, the number of owners certainly has, and you can just see this really accelerating pace of consolidation with ownership. And I think that's a big change for the industry as well. We'll definitely welcome that one in a way. Although I also have that feeling of the dealership in a way is kind of like the family farm. A lot of entrepreneurs really every day going out and just earning their business, working with those customers. So consolidation and technology and capital is one thing, but working with customers and improving that customer experience. And that really gets me to the third insight, which is one of our surveys. We asked folks, dealerships, what's the number 1 strategy you're focused on from 2023, 24, 25, and it's improving customer experience. So both people and process with an underlying technology, how do you improve customer experience? And that's just a big focus going forward. Those are, I think, big picture, those are kind of the takeaways from what I get from the research we do.
Fantastic. Yeah, I was just at a SodaCon. We were talking a lot about customer experience. Obviously, AI was a topic of the day. I interviewed, I think, over 15 different people from different sides of the business, everything from dealers. I interviewed Ed from Bozart Ford. Had spent some time with Trent Cannon, who leads the Ford Direct digital initiative. Spent time talking to Brian Benstock briefly. There was a lady who was the keynote speaker talking about experience and recruiting. And also there was a lot of different technology companies everywhere from data-centric, from cars, commerce, to a bunch of other companies in the AI space, including one that cleans data, which was kind of interesting. If you want, check out those videos. They're already online on our YouTube channel. But what I think was common when we've done shows on AI and we've done shows on customer experience and technology, dealers seem to be a little bit confused as to which AI tools to pick. And actually, we had a dealer on our AIO show, and she said she went to NADA this year and bought a bunch of technology, and then quickly realized some of her dealers, and I think there's 19 stores in her group, couldn't handle some of it. They just weren't ready for it, or it wasn't ready for them. So when you look at data, and obviously that's a big piece as you look at customer experience, but more importantly, insights that are high level that dealers can take action on. What do you think dealers can do to get ahead of these changes as we accelerate that change quotient? I think that when you look at change, it's accelerating. There was actually a post I saw briefly this morning where high schools were saying, oh, we're only going to accept homework if you handwrite it. And then there was a picture of a machine that handwrites assignments for people, which I thought was hilarious. So what do you think is the best advice on how to get ahead of it from a dealer perspective of the change?
Yeah, I can't say I can recommend any specific AI solutions. I think you have to start with the business problem. What problem are you trying to solve? And just thinking about AI, and we do it every year, we do an AI and dealership research project. Turns out about 35% of the folks that we surveyed are using AI. We talk about where they're using it. And about another 35% are planning to bring AI in the next year. So, and most of them understand it. Most of them are generally familiar with what AI is, give them a definition. and they're pretty good at, saying, yep, I know what that is. So there's already, again, going back to my previous comment, there's already a level of sophistication on understanding AI, bringing in AI, seeing the benefits of AI. And it really starts, I think, for a lot of dealers in variable operations, but not limited there. So when you think about where that would fit in variable operations, and I used to do this for the manufacturers years ago, how do you answer leads? How do you look at leads? How do you think about leads with regards to lead productivity? And how do you get back to that customer very quickly and very completely, so you're really providing the information they're asking for? That's a great place for AI. The other side is in fixed operations, and we do a survey that goes back to that document I think you held up, Service Shopper 3.0. And customers we ask them about the easy and difficult parts of their service journey. It turns out the most difficult part of their journey is understanding what they're going to need in the future. What do I need to think about when I think about my car and what service it may need? And so that's, again, where AI can really help out in the area of predictive service, understanding, with a lot of data, what type of things that the shopper should think about as far as preventive maintenance and making sure that their car is up to date with maintenance, and that, you don't have a disaster like breaking down on the side of the road. So those are two areas where I think AI really matters. Going back to business problems, understanding what customers need, how to improve their experience, and then applying AI where it's smart and makes sense and pays off for both the dealership and the customer.
Thanks for that.
I'm sorry, Peter, or sorry, Ian.
Go ahead.
I was laughing when you were talking about AI because that's where my brain immediately went, right? It was straight to AI and kind of thing. So Peter hit on one, like the predictive service. Just, what we've seen is we have, of course, we offer AI features, right? So we have a predictive service offering, which what we've seen is that it helps predict high probability of parts that will fail. So it allows the technicians to do, additional inspection points on those vehicles. And so what it can do is it can actually take, an entry-level technician and raise them up because it gives them information that, typically it would take years to actually, collect that and, have it in your brain like, oh, I know that this is likely to fail. So we're actually feeding that to those newer technicians. Peter also talked earlier about, one of his top 3 takeaways was just improving the consumer experience that, all these that's the number one strategy that dealers are looking to improve. And if you look at things like, an AI virtual assistant that can schedule appointments, so no customer is ever left on hold, it can immediately schedule their appointment. It's conversational. It integrates into the dealer's scheduler. That can certainly take a customer's experience and really elevate that. And there's another tool, before you actually started live, we talked a little bit about some of the tools that you were looking at, and it made me think of one that we have, which utilizes AI and its noise cancellation for the technician video. So, technician videos are, to me, one of the most important things a dealer can do to, help improve the customer's experience. But we now utilize AI to eliminate the noise in the background, as we all know, like, when they're doing that in their video, the technician at the bay right next to them can be making a whole lot of noise that makes it hard to hear. So we can actually eliminate that noise. So there's really just so many ways that AI can enhance, the customer's experience, which can lead to, growing revenue as well.
One other thing I'll add in there, I think it's, Ian, to your point, how can dealers get ahead? We do what we call a state of the industry every year. What are the big challenges that you had in 2022, 2023, et cetera? How did you respond to those challenges, and what worked the best? And so we did this last year. We did it in, I want to say, February, March timeframe. And there's a lot of external challenges, interest rates and inflation, et cetera. But dealers pivoted really quickly, and they really focused in on fixed operations. And the most successful strategy that they implemented, 91% said they had a positive outcome of using photos and videos to augment what the service technician was recommending. 91% said positive outcome. Right behind that was pickup and delivery. 87% said pickup and delivery was the most positive outcome. So the idea of going from, where they had these record profits in the 21-22 time frame the pivoting into fixed operations and helping people keep their cars on the road and building that trust and transparency. Again, most positive outcome is using technology to support fixed operations. It was huge.
Interesting. Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you look at customer service, you look at digital retail, you look at online buying, you look at the move towards OEMs looking at changing that and mandating things. Brands like Porsche and Honda have been in the news recently for these kind of areas. And I actually had the opportunity to talk to Brian Benstock briefly at a SodaCon because there was a change from the OEM on margin for dealers. And he said, yeah, I don't even worry about that. Just sell more cars. I thought that was really interesting compared to the dealers that I talked to in the Canadian market. But when you look at digital retail, and I know CDK has a great digital retail tool, what data are you seeing in terms of adoption versus, say, a couple of years ago with digital retail when it was kind of launched with big fanfare? What do you see the difference in how dealers are embracing digital retail and how customers are embracing that today? We did get a comment from LinkedIn. It's really about the journey from Jiraj, and thanks for that comment. But go ahead.
Yeah, another project we read a lot. So talk about we've got two going on. One goes monthly. We have both Canadian and U.S. folks that have bought a car in the last few months. How easy was it to buy your car? Turns out over the last 2 years we've been running this every month. We continue to see that score go up and improve from low 80s when it was hard to. I mean, it was still great, but people were struggling to find the car that they wanted. So it was around 81, 82% maybe 2 years ago. Now it's at 87%. So it's getting easier to buy a car. I'll talk about why that is in a minute. And then we also asked them if they bought a car before, was this time they did it easier or harder? It turns out 69% said it was easier. And so why is that? And a lot of it has to do, again, with the investment that dealers are making, be it digital retailing, F&I, manually, those types of things. It's making it easier for that customer to come in, understand what product they're looking at, understand what they can get as far as their trade-in, and getting through the process hopefully quicker. Now, second study I was going to bring up, which is we call friction points, and that is time is both your friend and your enemy when it comes to selling a car. Most folks say, I think 2 hours or less, I'm okay with that, the time it takes to buy a car. Anything more than 2 hours, I'm not okay with that. And so when we look at how customers are feeling about that journey, if it takes 3 hours, 4 hours or longer, they're not happy. And where does that time get used? That time is honestly people waiting for F&I.
Yeah.
So going back to how do I bring in digital technology? A lot of that is all about getting that customer through that funnel, and particularly getting the customer from the desk into the F&I office. Eliminating that wait time is super critical. Now, you asked about digital retailing and acceptance of that. Interestingly enough, we saw a spike in digital retail adoption again around the pandemic. No surprise that, right? Dealerships closed, and then people were afraid to go to the dealership. So digital retailing took off. But we're actually seeing a little bit of a decline in digital retailing adoption over the last year. We think that is, to some extent, the smaller dealers saying, I'm paying for this digital retailing tool, but the leads aren't really coming in. I'm going to save some money here, so I'm going to get rid of that system. That probably is a mistake. But we are seeing some erosion as far as dealerships in using digital retailing.
Interesting. And I had another comment specifically around predictive maintenance services and how that was real beneficial, again, from Jiraj from LinkedIn. But when we're talking about maintenance, because obviously we have Kim on the call to talk a little bit about maintenance, and I know that fix it right the first time is kind of a mandate for a lot of OEMs and dealers. What are customers saying in terms of the use of video? I know you were talking about video and service. I had the opportunity to work years ago for a company that was playing around with that in the early days. Do you find that sells more service? Do customers understand that better? Do they trust the dealers more? I mean, what do you find there?
Yeah, absolutely. yes to all those things. So, the dealers that are utilizing video, they're selling, just from our dealers that are using our tool, they're seeing anywhere from an increase from 15 to, 30% increase in, additional service revenue, as well as, it really is what's building trust. There's a dealer right up in the Cincinnati area, and a dealer here, he was just telling me that, since they've been using it, he's like, we've tried all kinds of things, one to, bump up service revenue. He said, and his increase of just over 30%. He said, and it was one thing, that was the video. And he said, we get comments from customers all the time stating that, wow, thank you. This is the first time I've seen under my car. Because if you think about it, all of us in the business, I walk through a service area all the time. I don't think much about it, but when I put myself back in as a consumer, I drop my car off and then it kind of goes away and it's behind the black curtain. We never see it again until someone comes out and tries to sell us something, right? So
Exactly.
that's exactly what these videos allow the customer to see. I can now see, under my car for the first time, I see the bubble in the tire. That was an example that one of the advisors, I'm trying to sell this customer new tires, I can show them the bubble in the tire, right, or the leak. And I'm hearing it from the expert. I had one dealer tell me at NADA that when you go to the doctor, you want to hear what's wrong with you from the doctor, not from the receptionist at the front of the doctor's office. And
Right.
that's what this is. The technician's your car's doctor in this case.
Well, it's interesting you bring it up because one of the sponsors of the show does training for social media, and she does TikTok training for car dealers. And we had the experience last year, group training for TikTok. But the most watched videos on TikTok for car dealers are from service teams, highly, highly watched. And the reason is, to your point, they're behind the curtain. Nobody really talks to them, and the customers don't in a lot of cases. And they are the experts, like going to a dentist and just having the dental assistant tell you what's wrong with your teeth, or the receptionist at the front, or the doctor, the nurse, not to beat up nurses. My wife's a nurse, but they're the same thing. When you look at it, hearing from that person not only allows you to understand the problem, but also probably shortens up that cycle of, is it done yet? Or can I approve the work, as opposed to chasing that person? Now, obviously, we're looking at sales and service, and we're looking at common threads because we know those two silos in a lot of stores don't communicate very well. Is there some learnings that the two silos together can learn, so that way not only can they work better together, but they can also drive retention, customer experience, and profit? I mean, what's your opinion there?
I'm going to talk a little bit about that, but we haven't done a lot of research when it comes to the idea of connecting service and sales. So though certainly that does happen, particularly in equity mining. That's a big one, right? Bringing in the customer for service, if you built that platform of trust, and having the service advisor come back around and maybe introduce the sales rep to say, listen, Mr. Customer, this customer, we can get you into this new car and save you some money on this whole thing. So that's one place where there's a join between sales and service. I think it's a really important one. But overall, it's, you sell the car, and that's the one-time experience, but then you want to make sure that experience is really great because you want that customer to come back for service. And that's where you sell the subsequent cars, is again, making that great customer experience all the way through that whole service journey. And I think that really matters. And where does that leadership come from? That leadership comes from the general manager, from the dealer principal, and making sure that all the players, sales and service, are all dialed around improving customer experience.
Thanks for that. I think Troy had a comment, but I'm not sure if he has a comment or an insight, but go ahead, Troy.
Well, no, I was just, when you ask about the commonality between sales and service, and I know Larry on the call here, of course, but what I would say is the common is really the trust piece, and Peter just touched on it. What video and some of these tools do is increase transparency in a dealership that dealers are trying to show, which then increase the trust factor. And if you could argue that, over the last, several decades, the car dealership or the car industry has been struggling with some trust issues with customers, and customers go to non-OEM service centers because they feel there's a lack of trust. And really the tools like video and predictive service bring that trust back in, which is massive. And then the same thing with sales. I mean, the picture of that you use all the time for the used car show of the guy in the blazer surrounded by balloons and wacky waving our inflatable tube bag, bringing the trust back into the business by using the transparency the tools can provide.
Well, yeah,
trust is huge. Trust is really huge. We know that, customers love, especially when we talk about service. Most customers come to the dealership for service. But the problem is there is a pretty high defection rate. And why is that? And the reason why that is because customers are feeling like they're getting upsold on repairs that are not necessarily needed. And that does take us back to trust, and trust is built using digital tools such as video and photos to, again, build that trust. So if the customer feels that the dealership is being transparent on price and transparent on repairs, it's going to continue to cement that trust, and that's how you're going to keep those customers.
100%. I mean, I trained BDCs many years ago. I remember working with a General Motors store. I think it was in the Greater Toronto area, and we were training a BDC. And one of the first things we did is call the third parties and say, okay, how much to service this car? And it happened to be a Chevy Cruze at the time. And not only was every single third party we called more money, but a lot of them were making stuff up on the fly, including one, I think it was Jiffy Lube, saying, oh, we can make any kind of oil you need right in the bay. And I was like, really? You got a chemical plant in your bay that you can make oil? I thought that was hilarious. But at the end of the day, a lot of it is perception. And I think some of it is based on gender rules. I mean, a lot of women seem to think that service departments are cheating them for whatever reason. And actually, I saw a post this morning. It was a female mechanic wearing a pair of high heels saying women know how to fix cars. I thought that was really interesting. But go ahead, Lisa, on what's your thought on that service side of things and service and sales?
You mean Kim?
Yeah, sorry, Kim. What are we talking about?
No worries. Yeah, so I was just going to say, I think the challenges are the same, right? So, I think both departments to, unlock additional revenue, and in service, there was a survey performed back in 2022 that said 6 out of 10 service customers had no additional work recommended to them when they bought a car for service, which that is crazy because a lot of advisors are paid off of, have some sort of commission for, the service revenue in their pay plan. So, why wouldn't you do that? And maybe it's because they don't have the tools that make it easy. So that, that could be a reason. Another big challenge that we've talked about is improving the customer experience. So, in the fixed ops space, dealers only have about 30% of the total market. So, improving the customer experience, retention is critical to that success of, the service department. Talk about trust, so I won't even hit on that anymore. But the other challenge that I think is across the board, but specific to, I would say employees, hiring new, qualified employees, but in the service department, it really, really hurts because it's the technicians, and that's the most critical need in the dealership. It's a hard spot to fill. So, we found that 79% of techs have considered leaving the role, so that's kind of scary. So, the challenge is real that, that's facing the dealers. And, so I think the challenges across all are the same, whether it's, trying to build trust in the service department, trust in the sales department, raise revenue. I think those are the same for both sales and service.
Yeah, Larry, maybe I can ask Larry that question since you recruits on sales and service, retention and training. Obviously, communication is an issue, Larry. But what do you think on how those two departments can work better together?
Well, it's really simple. I'll answer that question by answering your earlier questions you asked about how do we make AI make sense. To me, it's the approach and the implementation. Here's how we're going to use it. Here's why it's important to you. Here's why it will help you as well as the dealership, and then helping people implement it. If you think about it, Kim, we're talking about AI, but if you go back to every dealership on earth, they'll complain about how the people aren't putting their information in the CRM, which is way, way, way below AI in terms of elementary information and how to load it, how simple it is. We've got to emphasize how important the human element is tied in with the AI. The reason that you have division between sales and service is, and I mean this as lovingly as possible, we have a lot of morons in our business, just like we have in other parts of society. And instead of making it, there are a lot of desk managers now that won't talk to somebody, won't give them numbers unless there was a demo line. Why the heck wouldn't you give somebody numbers unless there was a service wall? Because if we don't keep these people in the family and keep them in the dealership, we lose everything. We lose the customer, we lose the additional service work. It comes down to being human. Hey, this is the guy that's going to be working on your car if I'm lucky enough they're in your business. You're right, because familiarity does breed contempt, but you know what it breeds first? Familiarity. So I think the answer to all these things, AI is miraculous, but it's only as miraculous as the people inputting it and tying it in it, making it work. I've always said the same thing. I'm sorry if I'm droning on, but I've never met anybody, even the really nerdy techs I know, that like it when they get 12 phone prompts and then get hung up. We have to tie in the human element. And Peter said earlier about the complaint, the number one complaint's always been how long it takes. That's because we don't make it clear what we're trying to accomplish, how we're trying to accomplish it, and get it through to our people. Kim, I was a salesman and I owned a dealership. And if I told you how many times as a salesman I stood next to somebody, or as a desk manager, as an owner, I heard somebody say, "Great news, boss, he loves the car. Great. Does he have a trade? I'll be right back." They come back, 8 minutes go by, and it's like, "Oh, yeah, he has a trade, boss. Does he have a payoff? I'll be right back." So if we start professional, if we listen better, if we tie things in and make them work, this all goes. Because I'll tell you what, I'm not a youngster, okay, but I run my whole business and I got 200 dealers. It's not like some of these giant companies, but 200 dealers I run off my phone. But people are still afraid of computers and people are still afraid of technology. So if we tie it in with being human, if we make it clear that there's a person behind it, the videos you're talking about, I bet you could still walk into dealerships, and maybe you still are, where they're not doing videos every day, sales and service. Why not? And they're still not responding. Kim, I'll give you this is a little off track, but it is simple solution. Anytime I'm in a dealership, I train for sales and I recruit for sales and service. By the way, if any of your dealers need X, here I am. I get them. I always say, let me give an unbelievable tip to your operator. Unbelievable how simplistic it is. When somebody's on the line about their car, instead of transferring them blindly, because most service people, we hope, are busy, say, "Hold on for a second. Let me see if he's at his desk." Okay, I checked. He's at his desk. I'm putting you through. He's not at his desk. Would you like voicemail or should I take a message? Because I'm telling you, Kim, you want some real problems? How bad we are at returning phone messages or checking phone messages or not answering our phones. So if we inject this much humanness into the process, we roll. And then if we can get people to start understanding why we're doing it and how we're doing it and what the net result will be, all of a sudden this thing works. Because if it's all AI, you're dead. And if it's all people, we're dead because we don't have the capacity, right? Nobody's going to be answering the phone at 3 o'clock in the morning or setting it. But I think if we miss connecting these two things, nothing's going to work. I mean, like I said, look at CRMs. That was going to cure everything. The managers could help you track and do save-a-deal meetings. To put the information in, I was too busy. How the hell can you be too busy to control and measure what you're doing?
100%.
By the way, Kim, Ing shouldn't ask me anything. I can't even say hello in less than 4 minutes.
Larry, that was awesome. I loved it. Now, it's funny because I ran a mystery shop service for probably 15 years. We did email mystery shop, we did phone.
Wait a minute. Do you also provide mental health counseling? Because if dealers listen to their own messages and they would all need the suicide prevention.
Yeah. It was good time. But I mean, to your point, I do believe that because of the volume of leads that come in, and a lot of it is garbage. You need some AI to sift through that and deal with it. But then, find those good leads, warm it up, and then pass it over to a person. And let that person,
Peter, I don't mean to interrupt you, but you got what's left of my brain work. Even you're a very bright guy, and I'm going to take issue with what you just said. You just said some of the leads are garbage. None of them are garbage. I made my fortune in Trenton, New Jersey, selling Cadillacs. Okay, that's like selling Ferraris to the ghetto. You would not believe how many people my finance manager said throw them out, and 2 hours later they would drive a car. Because I built enough value and rapport that they went to their mother, their father, they robbed the 7-Eleven, whatever it is, they found a way to do it. That's the one fear I deal with Indeed, who are also enough to make you do with the suicide prevention hotline. And every once in a while, somebody calls me or I reach out and say, hey, John, I saw you applied. Yeah, but Indeed said I was not qualified. So once again, it's computers versus humans. If we tie in with the ability to communicate much better and much faster and at all different hours with somebody that's not temperamental and human, a machine, but then tie in the human ability to do it. Because think about it, Peter, you've got a great job. You're obviously a bright guy. You're accomplished. But I can tell you as a dealership owner, the idea of anybody getting thrown out, I don't care if they went bankrupt that morning and they were going to prison that night, because every lead costs about $450 to walk in. So once again, a machine may coldly say the score is no good. Okay, the score is no good, but his dad's a millionaire. So I'm just taking issue with the fact that, again, everybody on this program is smarter than I am when it comes to everything, particularly AI. But if we tie a little crazy Larry Feldman with Peter's brilliance with technical stuff, now we got to win.
I think we're in violent agreement.
Yeah, we had a really interesting comment. Thanks for that, Larry. Setting expectations and human engagement is great. Here, letting me check someone at their desk or busy, but what happened to the pen and paper? Taking a written message is added special touch. Interesting.
Peter, I think I got a new friend in you. So excuse me, I'm not trying to sell you anything, but I got to tell you, and I got to tell Troy, and I definitely have to tell him. I'm a motivational speaker as well as a trainer, and in an attempt to try to get my face out there everywhere, I did a thing called Larry Talk instead of TED Talk, and I just look it up. It's LarryTalk.com. The only reason, Peter, is you'll laugh your butt off. I did an 8-minute post on what do Charlie Brown, Spider-Man, Mother Teresa, and Elvis Presley have in common. And what it launches into is their lack of self-esteem. 2 cartoon characters and 2 true icons. I mean, Mother Teresa, if you're aware, had crises of faith. This is a saint. And Presley might be the most handsome, gifted performer we ever saw. I mean, you talk about charisma. He was so afraid of his manager that he for years, he was embarrassed by his own career. So when you get a chance, it's LarryTalk.com, and seek me out on LinkedIn, and I'll do the same, because you look like you have way too much stability in your life. I could bring a little mental instability in.
Thanks for that, Larry. So we're looking at challenges on the sales side and service side. And we're also looking at the problems that need to be fixed. I mean, if you're looking at all the challenges in the car business, you'll be fixing them for a long time. But if they could fix one thing, I mean, what do you think that thing would be? And let's start with Kim on this one. Go ahead, Kim.
Okay, so I'm going to have 2 answers, right? A high level answer, and I'll do a dialed answer.
Yeah.
So high level, we've talked about the whole time is, what can, dealers need to take an active role, in building trust with their customers, and, as a product marketer, there's technology to help them do this, right? So, things like utilizing real-time updates, on repairs. I talked about our AI capabilities. We have texting solutions that include AI that provide smart replies and professional text. So it helps really elevate every communication with a customer. For example, if someone texts them back in Spanish or French and I'm an English speaker, it will translate, and I can text back in English and it can translate back to them. So giving the customer the experience they want. We talked about tech videos, so I won't even go into that one. we know that helps build trust and through transparency, pulls the curtain back. And then the other one is just consistent pricing from, scheduling through, their appointment online all the way through actually paying for the service. So, the best way to do that is like having a single pricing like that works through the whole service workflow. So again, online through invoicing. So that's kind of my big pitch, on helping build trust. But if you were going to say, Kim, I need to do one thing today, what would it be? It would be either, if you're not doing tech videos, start doing tech videos. And if you are doing them, then look at your tech videos. How long are they lasting? Like really dive into the stats, the KPIs. We offer webinars twice a month just to help the videos. It's not about like our solution or anything like that. It's literally dialed into what can you do better to provide your customers better videos. So that's my spiel on what's
Hey,
the one
Jim,
thing.
can I dovetail on you? And
Sure.
because everything you just said made complete sense. Can I throw the human aspect back in? You want to get more business? You want to make your customers trust you? You want to make more money? How about insisting and explaining why the purpose is to have every service advisor do a walk around on every car every time? Because as great as machines are, and they're great, they can't empathize, they can't smile at you, they can't say, hey, nice tie, they can't look in the eye.
Well, I think tech video, I know you're talking about doing a walk around, and I completely agree, right? That should be happening on all the cars. But I think with the tech video, that links the two together, right? It links the video, or the human along with the technology. And what it does, if a dealer does a video every single time the car comes in, like, my car, I just happened to buy a new one in January. When I take it in for service, I'm hoping they don't actually find anything wrong, but I can get a video that time, right? So I get a video, no recommendation. And then finally, when I get one that is something wrong, I trust that dealer. It's not, I don't feel like, oh, they're just doing this because they're trying to sell me something. They're doing it every time. And I see the value of this as a consumer. So that truly links that human aspect along with the technology.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting. I saw the gentleman in charge of, I guess, foreign customers or customers who don't speak English at Beaver Toyota, and we actually interviewed him and a gentleman who helps dealers build teams of Spanish-speaking employees. And it was interesting because in the interview, they talked about the difference in the communication in the Spanish community in the United States. So it was really interesting just sort of hearing that. But to your point, if it's a video, and more importantly, it's a video talking about that, individual vehicle. And I'm assuming they would also have technicians who speak multiple languages. But at the end of the day, it's showing the customer what's wrong with the vehicle. I have a question, though, about video in cars. Is there a certain ideal length of video for that? I mean, is there an attention span number there?
The shorter, the better.
I mean, I think there's a process, that, you're doing a video inspection, you start off showing the license plate, the technician should introduce themselves, and then they start doing it. I mean, I would say a couple minutes, probably 2 to 3 minutes, something like that, unless there is something wrong and you've got to get into a little bit more detail about what's wrong. But
Yeah.
I think if you're doing something under a minute, you're probably not doing a good enough video, a thorough enough video, and probably if it's over 4 or 5 minutes, that could be too long.
Okay. Peter, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love some of the things that Larry said. Fantastic. And you've got, the point he made about customers waiting for the salesperson or waiting for the F&I manager or waiting for whatever reason. The data from our shoppers backs that up. And so I think there's 2 things dealers need to think about. One is time, and that is making sure that the dealership is effective in time it takes to sell a car or service a car, and the quicker, honestly, the better. And what that's all about, using the playbook to make sure that you follow the process, and so you can move the shopper, through the process of figuring out what kind of vehicle they want to buy, how much the trade's worth, what they can afford, the financing, all those things. That's where you need to follow the sales playbook, and you need really good seamless technology that backs up that playbook. such that there isn't any holdups between getting the data through the system, getting the customer through the system so they can effectively move through that process. Same for service. The other thing that really matters, and that also goes back to something Larry mentioned, which is expertise. Customers are coming to the dealership because they want to talk to somebody that knows their stuff. That you can either talk about the product and why it fits their needs really well, or talk about the vehicle service that's needed. And so customers want to talk to an expert, and they want to learn from an expert. Once they know what they need to know, then they want to move through that process very quickly. So being very thoughtful about using the customer's time wisely, and being very thoughtful about answering the customer's questions, being professional, and getting those questions completely answered so the customer again has that trust level.
Yeah, I mean, I think you're 100% right there. When you look at the trust, I mean, I happen to spend some time on the weekend helping my brother buy a car, and I don't recommend helping a relative buy a car ever, because it's always challenging when you're in the car business. But I went to the same dealer that actually is a listener of the show where I bought my car. And it was a pretty painless process because of my relationship with the dealer, but also my brother is, was able to, get it done quickly. And he had a time, I think it was about a 2-hour time frame, which is ironic because that was kind of what he was looking at. But at the end of the day, it's about that relationship with the dealer or that salesperson or that brand. But that can really make the difference when you look at data between 20 years ago, 3 to 5 dealers, and today, 1, maybe 1.1 dealer. Really, it's about how that dealer handles the football of that process front to back. And I think service, way back when I used to train service departments and BDCs, it was a very low retention number. And really, that's a number that has to increase. And again, it's about trust. When you look at, how can you build that trust with that service customer? There's no reason they should be going elsewhere. I had an opportunity to work with the Toyota dealer in Portland, Oregon, near the Nike headquarters. And their retention number was ridiculous. They were doing 300 to 400 ROs a day. Why? Because the customers trusted them. And it wasn't because they were the biggest, baddest dealer in the market. It was just that they cared about sales and service equally. And there was a lot of interaction between the two departments. So that's my takeaway from today's conversation. But thanks for all the data. If you wanted to download or order these books, that would be this hard copy book or the Insight on the service side. You can go to cdkglobal.com/insights, or you can reach out to me, Ian, at autohubshow.com, and I'll be happy to connect you. Thanks for taking the time today. Have yourself a great week. Any final thoughts?
I would just say, your foot off the gas. Right, don't put your foot off the gas, because there's so many things that dealers can offer that, the independents and chains can't from the service side. Promote your technicians, market them. When you're doing marketing, market your technicians. That's one of those reasons at the very beginning. That's takeaway that consumers are choosing a dealership is the knowledge that your technicians have. And does
CDK provide training for video for technicians?
We do.
Okay.
We have webinars that we provide.
Hey, Tim, I have another high-tech idea too. Teach your salespeople to smile and your service people to smile, because that can change the perception. They asked Einstein, to explain his theory of relativity. He says, listen, your greatest genius on earth, only 3 people understand. Explain it for the layman. He said, it's our perception of time. That if your girlfriend sits on your lap for an hour, it feels like a minute. And if you sit on a hot stove for a minute, it feels like an hour. So if we're friendly with people, if we're attentive to their needs, if we make them feel comfortable, the time won't seem that long no matter what it is.
Any final thoughts, Peter?
I just want to thank you all. Thank you for an opportunity to talk about, the information that we bring forward. It's a great venue. I think pretty much what everybody's talked about, again, it's the right stuff. I think dealers are very professional for the most part. They're adaptive, they're resilient. They've gone through, if you think about the last 20 years, from Great Recession to pandemic, dealers continue to survive and thrive, and they do it because they learn, they adopt, be it, again, to Larry's point, that human connection coupled with technology. I think that's how dealers are making it. I think, looking ahead to the industry, it's a great place to be, and we're all blessed to be here.
Thanks very much. Have yourself a great week. Thanks for being on the show. Really appreciate it. And bye for now.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.